Some things we use in everyday life have rather dark origins or uses. Let's take a look at 10 everyday things that have dark origins. Number 10. Ketchup. In the early days of ketchup, the tomato-based condiment was sold with opium. Graphite is a form of carbon that's found in pencils. This process separates the different components of crude oil based on their boiling points. Vaseline is a petroleum jelly that's often used as a lubricant. It's made by crushing the plants and then boiling the resulting juice until it thickens. But sugar has a pretty dark history. It's also used to make aluminum foil, which is a thin sheet of aluminum that's used to wrap food. Aluminum is made by smelting alumina, which is a compound that's made from bauxite ore. Refrigerators are appliances that are used to keep food fresh by cooling it. The first written record of bread making dates back to ancient Egypt, where it was an integral part of the diet. See you next time. Egyptians would bake bread using a leavening agent such as yeast or natron, and natural sodium carbonate. During the Middle Ages, bread became a staple of the European diet, and it was often the main source of calories for peasants. It was also a symbol of wealth and power, with different shapes and sizes indicating the social status of the person consuming it. During the French Revolution, the price of bread became so high that it led to widespread riots and the storming of the Bastille. In the 19th century, bread making became more industrialized with the invention of the bread slicer and the bread-making machine. Today, bread is one of the most popular foods in the world, and it's enjoyed by people of all cultures. There are countless varieties of bread, each with its own unique flavor and texture. From the crusty loaves of French bread to the soft rolls of dinner rolls, there's a bread out there for everyone to enjoy. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses for this iconic food. In 1999, a group of scientists published a study in the journal Nature Food that claimed that bread was responsible for the spread of civilization. They argued that the development of agriculture and the domestication of plants and animals occurred because humans began to cultivate crops that could be ground into flour and made into bread. But not everyone agrees with this theory. Some scientists argue that bread was not an important enough part of the diet in prehistoric times to have caused such major changes in human society. But one thing is for sure, bread has a long and complicated history. And the next time you take a bite of your favorite loaf, remember that you're participating in a tradition that dates back thousands of years. They work by using a refrigerant, which is a substance that evaporates at a low temperature, to absorb heat from the air inside the refrigerator. The heat is then released outside of the refrigerator, and the cycle continues. Refrigerators were invented in the early 19th century, but they didn't become common household items until the 20th century. Before refrigerators, people would keep their food cool by storing it in ice boxes. Ice boxes were simply insulated containers that were filled with ice, which would melt and then refreeze, creating a cooling effect. But ice boxes were expensive, and they were also heavy. Refrigerators were much more convenient, and they quickly became popular. But did you know that the first refrigerators were actually powered by hand cranks? That's right. People would have to crank a handle on the refrigerator to make it work. Eventually, electric motors were developed that could power refrigerators automatically. But those early refrigerators were a lot of work. Bauxite is a type of rock that's found in tropical and subtropical regions of the world. It's mined by surface strip mining, which involves removing the top layer of soil and rock to expose the bauxite ore. The bauxite ore is then crushed and ground into a powder. This powder is then mixed with sodium hydroxide and water to create a solution of sodium aluminate. The sodium aluminate is then electrolyzed to create aluminum metal. While aluminum is generally safe to use with food, the mining of bauxite can be harmful to the environment. Bauxite mining has been linked to deforestation, soil erosion, and water pollution. For centuries, sugar was a luxury good that was only available to the rich. A wick is then placed in the mold, and the candle is allowed to cool and harden. Candles have been used for centuries to provide light and heat. But did you know that the first candles were actually made from human fat? That's right. Early humans would render down the fat of their enemies or animals they had killed, and then use it to make candles. They would then use these candles to light the way during the long, Dark nights of winter. Thankfully, we've come a long way since then, and now we use candles for much more pleasant purposes. We use them to create a cozy atmosphere, to celebrate special occasions, or just to relax and unwind. But next time you light up a candle, remember that it could have started out as human fat. This is because it was very expensive to make due to the labor-intensive process of harvesting the plants and refining the sugar. But in the 18th century, sugar prices began to fall and sugar became more widely available. This was due to a number of factors, including the invention of new technologies that made it easier to harvest and refine sugar. Also, the discovery of new sources of sugar, such as sugar beets. But perhaps most importantly, it was due to the enslavement of Africans. Europeans began to grow sugar on plantations in the Americas, and they relied on slave labor to do the harvesting. It's estimated that over 10 million Africans were transported across the Atlantic Ocean as slaves, most of them to work on sugar plantations. The profits from the sugar trade helped to finance the Industrial Revolution in Europe, and it played a key role in the growth of the global economy. But it was until the 20th century that sugar really became a staple of the diet for people around the world. Today, sugar is the world's most consumed sweetener, and it is added to everything from food and drinks to cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. It's made by refining petroleum, which is a type of crude oil that's found in certain rocks. Petroleum is extracted from the rocks through a process called fracking, which involves drilling a hole into the rock and injecting a mixture of water, sand and chemicals into it. This mixture creates cracks in the rock which allow the petroleum to flow out. The petroleum is then refined to remove the impurities and create Vaseline. While Vaseline is safe to use on skin, the process of extracting petroleum is extremely dangerous and has caused many environmental problems. The lightest component is methane, which has a boiling point of -161 degrees Celsius. The heaviest component is bitumen, which has a boiling point of over 600 degrees Celsius. Gasoline is made up of the components that have boiling points between 30 and 200 degrees Celsius. These components are then mixed together in various proportions to create gasoline. The first internal combustion engine that ran on gasoline was invented by German engineer Nikolaus Otto in 1876. But gasoline really came into its own in the early 20th century when mass-produced cars became a thing. Since then, it's become one of the most important fuels in the world. It's soft and easy to work with, which is why it's perfect for making pencils. But back in the day when they first started using graphite for pencils, they didn't have any real way of knowing how pure it was. And so sometimes the graphite would be mixed with something else. Sometimes this other substance would be the toxic metal arsenic. It was only later that they discovered that this was what was making some people sick who worked in the pencil factories. When they switched to using pure graphite, the problem went away. So while pencil lead today is definitely not pure lead, it may contain small amounts of arsenic. Back in the 19th century, it wasn't uncommon for condiments to be mixed with small amounts of opium. This is because the drug was used as a pain reliever, but also to help people stay awake and alert. The mixture of ketchup and opium became so popular that there were even special bottles made for it with 2 compartments. One for the ketchup and one for the opium. But then eventually the drug became illegal, and they had to stop mixing them together. 9. Pencil lead. Pencil lead isn't actually lead at all. It's actually graphite. No. 8. Nail polish remover. Most nail polish remover is made from acetone. Acetone is a clear, colorless liquid that's often used in paints and varnishes. It is also used in nail polish remover because it can dissolve the glue that holds nail polish to your nails. But acetone has a pretty dark origin. It was first synthesized in 1912 by German chemists who were trying to create a new type of plastic. They ended up creating a very strong plastic, but it was also extremely flammable. And so they had to find another use for it. They decided to start selling it as nail polish remover, and it's been used ever since. 7. Gasoline. Gasoline is a petroleum product that's used to power most cars. It's made from crude oil through a process called fractional distillation. No. 6. Vaseline. 5. Sugar. Sugar is a sweetener that's made from plants like sugarcane and beets. No. 4. Aluminum foil. Aluminum is a lightweight, malleable metal that's used in a wide variety of products, including soda cans and airplane parts. 3. Candles. Candles are made from wax or fat that's melted and then poured into a mold. 2. Refrigerators. 1. Bread. Thanks for watching.